Sir, if you could raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm your testimony in the matter pending before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? You can have a seat. Sir, if you could state and spell your name for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Andrew. Last name is Falzon. Falzon.
And, sir, where are you currently employed?
I am currently employed as a consultant pathologist with Mater Dei Hospital in Malta, Europe.
And what are your role, or what do you do as a consultant forensic pathologist there?
I oversee a pathology lab, one of the satellite labs on a separate island, and I also provide forensic services to the hospital.
Can you tell the jury a little bit about your prior employment before working at the hospital in Malta?
So I started as a associate medical examiner with the state of Georgia, with the GBI in Decatur, Georgia. That was from 1999 to 2001. After that, I was the assistant medical examiner for Middlesex County, New Jersey. And then when my chief retired, I became the chief medical examiner for the county. And I then took over the chief state medical examiner position for the state of New Jersey.
Throughout your career, has it been part of your job to conduct autopsies
Sure.
when requested by law enforcement or otherwise?
Yes.
Approximately, if you know, over the course of your career, how many autopsies have you performed?
Over 3,500 post-mortem examinations.
Can you speak a little bit to your professional experience?
I graduated as a doctor of medicine and surgery from the University of Malta. I did a rotating internship there. I then started a master's degree program at the University of Mississippi Medical Center, and I graduated with a master's degree in anatomy in '92. I then enrolled in a pathology, anatomic and clinical pathology residency program at the University of Mississippi, and following that I did a one-year fellowship in forensic pathology at the University of Alabama, Birmingham.
Have you also had an occasion to teach in the area of pathology and forensic pathology?
Yes, it did.
Can you speak just briefly to that, sir?
I usually, whichever locality I'm working at, I teach forensic pathology to various classes, usually undergrad classes.
Do you serve on any boards, sir?
As the chief state medical examiner, I served on the Domestic Violence Fatality Near Fatality Review Board, and also the Child Fatality Review Board, both the State Board and the Suicide Subcommittee. I still serve on the Suicide Subcommittee of the Child Fatality Review Board.
Again, briefly, do you have trainings and certifications in the area of forensic pathology?
Once I completed my training in pathology, I took the American Board of Pathology certifying exams. I am board certified in anatomic, clinical, and forensic pathology.
Have you spoken at conferences related to the area of forensic pathology?
I've presented at mainly at the National Association of Medical Examiners meeting, on any research that myself or the office was conducting.
And have you previously testified in court before as an expert in the area of forensic pathology?
Yes, I have.
Do you know how many times?
Over 100 times, mainly in the state of New Jersey, but also in the state of Georgia.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would tender Dr. Falzon as an expert in the area of forensic pathology.
All right, any objection by the defense, or would you like to voir dire the witness?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. This witness is declared an expert in the area of forensic pathology. You may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Falzon, I'd like to turn your attention back to January the 20th of 2001. Just to be clear, where were you working at that time, sir?
At that time, I was working with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation in Decatur, Georgia.
And on that date, did you have the occasion to perform an autopsy on the body of Tara Baker?
Yes, I did.
Can you describe briefly the condition in which the body was received?
The body was received enclosed in a black body bag, and the body, to my recollection, was that she was unclad, she didn't have any clothes on her, and it was extremely charred.
Do you take steps to ensure that the person you are performing the autopsy on matches the, I guess, submission from law enforcement, I guess?
Yes, I do.
Okay. At the time, do you recall, or would you have noted receiving any historical or case information related to the request for the autopsy?
Typically we would receive that. I haven't seen any copies of those recently, so I don't recall exactly.
Okay. Can you tell us briefly what an autopsy consists of?
An autopsy is a post-mortem examination, typically performed to establish the cause and manner of death. We would start by reviewing the history surrounding the case. Then we'd move on to the examination of the body. Certain cases, we would do x-rays prior to actually starting the examination. Then you describe the clothing, remove the clothing, collect any trace evidence if indicated, and then you start the external examination, the examination of the body from head to toe, front and back. Once that is documented and you look for any injuries, document those, take the necessary photographs, then you move on to an internal examination whereby we do an incision across the chest and abdomen, remove the organs of the chest and the abdomen. We'll make an incision across the top of the scalp, remove the skull cap, examine the brain, and then finally we'd examine the neck organs. During the course of the autopsy, we'll also collect specimens for toxicology and DNA as indicated.
You also take photographs while the autopsy is being conducted?
Correct.
And is it common practice to reduce the findings of your autopsy in the form of a written report?
Yes.
Dr. Falzon, I'm going to hand you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 1. Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, I do.
What is State's Exhibit 1?
It is a copy of the autopsy report drafted and signed by myself.
And is that the autopsy related to the case involving Tara Baker?
Correct.
I'd move to tender State's 1 at this time, Your Honor.
Any objection, Mr. Cruz?
No, ma'am.
It is admitted.
Dr. Falzon, I'm going to go through your report kind of sequentially as it's outlined in State's Exhibit 1. Let's talk a little bit about the receipt of the body. I think I kind of just touched on this earlier, but if you could speak to what your report reflects as to how the body was received.
Correct. The body bag was, there were tags affixed to the body bag zipper that had the case information relevant to this case.
Can you speak generally to, you mentioned an external examination. We're going to try and take it in order. What was the first thing that you did with Ms. Baker as it relates to that external examination?
Photographs would have been taken, and then overall assessment of the body, the charring, the degree of rigor mortis, and the stiffening of the muscles that happened post-mortem, any lividity, the settling of blood in the dependent areas, general observations.
Let's talk a little bit about the injuries that you noted to Ms. Baker's body, starting with those on the head and neck, sir. Can you describe those in general?
The injuries on the head and neck were mainly in the form of blunt force injuries. When we describe injuries, there's three main categories: blunt force injuries that are caused by a blunt instrument, whether that be a fist, a piece of wood, a hammer. Those are all blunt force injuries. There's sharp force injuries that are caused by objects with a cutting edge. Could be a knife, could be a shard of glass. And then there's gunshot wounds. In the case of Ms. Baker, she had multiple blunt force injuries, mainly in the form of bruises around the eyes, the right and left sides of the head, and on the neck. She also had, on the neck, she also had a stab wound on the right lower front of the neck, and she had a ligature mark that surrounded the neck.
Okay. Specifically as it relates to the stab wound, can you describe in a little bit more detail what you observed?
The stab wound, like I said, was on the right lower front. When I describe a stab wound, typically I will imagine the face of a clock overlying the wound. And in this case, the wound was oriented between the 10 o'clock and the 4 o'clock on the lower front of the neck.
Okay. You also mentioned a ligature mark encircling Ms. Baker's neck. Can you speak a little bit more to that, please?
Yes. The ligature mark completely encircled the neck. It had one mark on the back of the neck and two marks on the front, which indicated that the ligature had been wrapped around the neck, crossed over in the front, and the ligature held on the sides.
Did you note any other injuries to Ms. Baker's neck?
She had some blunt force injuries to the neck. Not sure if there was something specific here. If I may look at the report. She had contusions, bruises below on the left ear, below the left ear, and behind the left ear.
Moving, and we'll come back to that momentarily, Dr. Falzon. Did your external examination of Ms. Baker also include injuries to her torso?
It did, yes.
And again, I'm going to ask you to briefly summarize the extent of those injuries that you observed.
The injuries to the torso were mainly in the genital and anal areas.
Can you go into a little bit more detail about those injuries, sir?
Again, they were in the form of blunt force injuries, bruising, bruising on the right side of her vulva down to the posterior aspect of the vulva, and she also had a bruise that completely encircled the anal region.
And lastly, Dr. Falzon, did you note any injuries to Ms. Baker's extremities?
Yes, it did.
And what were those?
Those were mainly in the form of sharp force injuries, injuries caused by a cutting instrument, and they were limited to the back of her hand, which could be classified as defensive type injuries, the injuries that a person would sustain trying to ward off an attack.
Did part of your internal examination of Ms. Baker include examination of the organs of the neck?
Yes, I did.
And particularly, what, if anything, did you observe in that part of the internal examination of Ms. Baker?
As part of the examination of the neck structures, we look at the bones and the cartilages that make up the neck. One of the bones that we have in the neck is called the hyoid bone. It's a C-shaped bone that sits above the larynx. With cases of strangulation, we often see fractures in the hyoid bone. In the case of Ms. Baker, there were fractures on both the right and left sides of the hyoid bone.
And based on your training and experience, sir, what, if any, significance did you attribute to your observation as it related to Ms. Baker's broken hyoid bone?
That was part of the strangulation process.
Dr. Falzon, you mentioned that as part of the autopsy, you do take photographs.
Correct.
Bear with me just a second, Dr. Falzon.
May?
Dr. Falzon, I'm going to show you what's been labeled States Exhibits 2 through 7. We're going to finish labeling them, the rest of the photos here in just a moment. But if you could take a look Again, states 2 through 7. Do you recognize those, sir?
I do.
Are those states exhibits 2 through 7 fair and accurate representations of the autopsy that you described of Ms. Baker back on January 20th, 2001?
Yes, they are.
Move to tender states 2 through 7.
Any objection, Mr. Cruz?
No, ma'am.
They are admitted.
And again, I realize this is a little cumbersome. If I can approach it yet.
You may.
This, Dr. Falzon, is states 8 through 14. Same question. Take your time. Take your time. See if you can recognize those. And then one last group. Then I'm done. If I can approach again.
You may.
This is states 15 through 22. Last time. States, I believe, 8 through 22, are those also all true and accurate depictions of your observations of Ms. Baker's body as you observed her at the autopsy on January 20th, 2001?
They are.
Move to tender states 8 through, well, let me just start back, 22 through 22.
All right. Well, 2 through 7 have been admitted, so we're now on 8 through 22.
8 through 22.
All right. Mr. Cruz, any objection?
No, ma'am.
They are admitted.
If I can publish those to the jury at this time.
And how are you planning on doing that? Just handing them to them? Okay. So that's what I'm asking. So we've had a prior ruling. Thank you. So just for any red and black persons who may be here under Rule 22 with a photo opportunity that the court granted, the Rule 22 has been amended to prohibit the media from taking any photographs or videos, of course, of these particular photos that the state is going to introduce to the jury. So if you can turn, thank you for doing that. I saw you turn your camera off. If anyone is here from the red and black pursuant to Rule 22, if you would please not photograph. Go ahead, Mr. Baldwin.
Your Honor, and I think the court may have
That's
to
right.
switch. So, Dr. Falzon, you should have a monitor down there to your right. Okay. Dr. Falzon, we're going to start with State's Exhibit 2. What is State's Exhibit 2, sir?
It's a photograph of the body of Miss Baker as received, and it depicts the face, the torso from the chest down to the hip area, and the upper extremities.
State's Exhibit 3, same question.
This would depict the lower aspect of Ms. Baker from the upper chest, including the lower extremities, and you can see the charring of the body in this photograph.
State's Exhibit 4. What do we see here, sir?
This is a photograph of the face of Ms. Baker, showing a degree of charring and also the blunt force injuries that I alluded to prior, notably the bruising around the eyes.
State's Exhibit 5. Is that just a slightly different angle of her face?
Correct. It's a slightly closer up view of the face.
Same question as it relates to State's Exhibit 6.
Again, closer up view, focusing mainly on the right eye.
State's Exhibit 7.
This depicts the left side of the face, and there's, again, charring, and you can see there's a braided laceration, kind of like a U-shaped, inverted U-shaped lesion on the left side of the chin.
State's Exhibit 8.
Okay. This is a photograph depicting the left side of the face, neck, and the left shoulder, and you can see the ligature mark on the posterior aspect of the neck.
State's Exhibit 9. Is that just kind of a closer up photograph of what you just described?
Correct, and you can see the single linear mark that extends over the posterior neck, and you can also see the bruising behind the left ear.
This is State's Exhibit 10. What do we see here, Dr. Falzon?
It's a photograph of the neck aspect. You could see the ligature mark on the top, which is an electric cord, and you can see the plug aspect, the prongs on the left-hand side of the photograph.
And Dr. Falzon, I think you can actually, if it would be helpful, the screen in front of you, you can touch and circle things. Just to clarify what you just described as it relates to the ligature, and I think Your Honor might have to, Mr. Dickey explained that there's a width and yes. All right. So you've made some drawings on.
The U-shaped, I need to erase that. Okay. But so I'm marking here the cord, and that's the prong aspect and the plug attached to the cord there.
In this photograph, is the stab wound that you previously described also identifiable in this photograph?
That would be
right. Thank you, sir. State's Exhibit 11. What do we see here, sir?
again, you see the cord here. Difficult to see because it's.
And the circle at the end, is that the
That's the end of the
plug to the
plug. Yeah.
It's Exhibit 12. What is What are we seeing here, Dr. Falzon?
It's the front of the neck. Again, there was extensive charring, and there was a lot of smeared, dried blood on the skin. But you could see the stab wound, and the stab wound had what we refer to as the blunt edge and the sharp edge. When you have a knife, obviously you have a cutting edge of the knife, and the back, the non-cutting part of the blade, and they both leave kind of distinct characteristics. But this would be the blunt end there at the back. So you see the blunt end on the, I guess, on the right-hand side of the body, with the sharp edge more directed towards the middle of the body.
We'll come back to that later, Dr. Falzon, but I'm going to move on for now. This is State's Exhibit 13. Is that just a slightly different angle of the stab wound that you just described?
Correct.
State's Exhibit 14, particularly on Ms. Baker's left shoulder. Did you reach any conclusions about that area where there's no charring, sir? If that question makes sense?
Right. It looks like an area of what we'd call sparing. There's no soot and charring on that area, and most likely that was where the plug was resting, kind of like protecting the skin from the soot deposition.
State's Exhibit 15. Is that just a slightly different picture of different angle of
Correct. Closer up view.
what we just described? Okay. Okay. These are where it gets even tougher. State's Exhibit 16, Dr. Falzon. What is this photograph?
That's a photograph depicting Ms. Baker's genital area. You can see the bruising. The above, this would be kind of like an area of charring, heat damage. So this is not part of the injury she sustained while she was alive, but you can also see the bruising around the introitus, the entryway to the vagina.
And we're going to follow up on that with State's Exhibit 17. Again, I apologize. State's Exhibit 17, what is this a photograph of, Dr. Falzon?
This is a slightly different angle of the anal-vaginal area. You could see a bruising that completely surrounds the anus, which would be this area here. And then you see the bruising on the right-hand side and the posterior aspect of the introitus, the entrance into the vagina.
State's Exhibit 18, is that just a slightly different angle of the last photograph, sir?
Correct.
We're almost done. State's Exhibit 19, shifting gears. What are we looking at here, sir?
This is a photograph of the back of Miss Baker's left hand.
State's Exhibit 20, is that just a slightly different viewpoint of that left hand?
Correct, and it's showing what we refer to as an incised wound. With sharp force injuries, you can have stab wounds where the knife is actually penetrates, the blade penetrates into the body, or you can have an incised wound where the cutting edge is dragged along the surface of the skin. This here is an incised wound that we see in that area there.
State's Exhibit 21. Again, are we just kind of looking at that same left hand, sir?
Correct, and you can also see there's another incised wound, another cut in the web space between the fourth and fifth fingers. So that would be that area there.
And then finally, State's Exhibit 22. Is that just a picture of the ligature that you previously described after it had been removed from Ms. Baker's body?
Correct.
Dr. Falzon, I want to first talk about the injuries that you've described and the photos that we've seen in Ms. Baker's genital area. And you've described those, and we've seen the photographs. Based on your training and experience, coupled with your observations of that area of Ms. Baker's body, what, if any, significance can you attribute to the causation of those injuries?
Those would be caused by sexual intercourse with force used.
As it relates, and then I realize I'm jumping around a little bit, as it relates to your observations with regards to the ligature and Ms. Baker's, the fact that her hyoid bone had been broken, and again, based on your training and experience, what, if any, significance do you attribute to the causation of those injuries?
So the injuries on the neck that we saw from the cord and the fractures of the hyoid bone would be the result of strangulation, ligature strangulation.
And then Dr. Falzon, as it relates to your observations of the stab wound that you've previously described on Ms. Baker's neck and the wounds, which I believe you previously referred to as defensive type wounds, to her left hand, do you have, and again, based on your training and experience, do you have an opinion as to the mechanism by which those injuries may have occurred?
Those would be sharp force injuries inflicted by a knife. Just to expand on the stab wound, because we described the injury on the skin, but once the internal examination is performed, there was actually injury to the internal jugular vein on the right side, which is the main vein that drains blood from the right side of the brain, which would explain the amount of hemorrhage, the blood on Ms. Baker's skin. And that would have been caused by a knife.
Okay. And did you, were you able to form an opinion as to how that stab wound may have been inflicted?
Given the orientation, the location, and the orientation of the wound, as part of the assessment of the stab wound, I also try to ascertain the direction in which the stab wound was penetrated into the body. So in case of the stab wound that we saw on Ms. Baker's right neck, the knife entered through the skin and it went from front to back, downwards and to the left. In my experience, that has often been due to somebody being stabbed with the perpetrator standing behind the victim and forcing the knife into the body cavity like that.
And again, referring to your observations as to the incised wounds on Ms. Baker's left hand, what, if anything, do those wounds tell you about what you just referenced?
Those would indicate that Ms. Baker would have been in the process of trying to protect herself from the stabbing while it was being performed.
Would it be helpful to the jury to kind of demonstrate what you've just described, sir?
Yes.
Well, Your Honor, is it okay if I ask Dr. Falzon to step down into the well?
It's fine.
Dr. Falzon, I'm going to hand you what is very clearly a rubber knife. And I'm going to be Ms. Baker. And so what you just described on the stand, sir, if you could kind of describe or show exactly what you just meant.
So the entry wound would have been somewhere here. So with holding the knife like this, the blunt end would be at the 10 o'clock position, and the sharp end would be at the 4 o'clock position like that.
And again, as it relates to the injuries to the hand, how would that, in your estimation, have occurred?
So if she was trying to hold on, that would explain the cut on the space between the fourth and the fifth finger. Again, the direction would be front to back, downwards, and to the left.
Thank you, sir. You have a seat. Back in. Dr. Falzon, based on everything that we've talked about, well, actually, I want to back up just a little bit. Did your autopsy of Ms. Baker reveal anything as it related to her larynx?
She did, yes, I did examine the larynx, the voice box where the vocal cords sit, and she did have a slight amount of soot present below the vocal cords.
Did you also, as part of this autopsy, request or refer Ms. Baker's blood be tested for the presence of carboxyhemoglobin?
Yes, I did.
And are you familiar with the results of that report?
Yes, I am.
And what was that?
I believe it was between 6 and 14%. I may have to jog my memory. I gave you back the report, but.
Now, let's talk a little bit about carboxyhemoglobin.
Okay.
What is that, sir?
Hemoglobin is a molecule that transports oxygen. It picks up oxygen in the lungs, takes it and deposits it in the periphery of the body, and it picks up carbon dioxide and releases that back in the lungs during respiration. Now, when as part of the fire, carbon monoxide is formed. So carbon dioxide is carbon with 2 oxygens. Carbon monoxide is carbon with 1 oxygen. Carbon monoxide tends to attach somewhat more strongly to the hemoglobin molecule, and it actually prevents hemoglobin from transporting oxygen. So when somebody is exposed to a fire, we test the blood for carboxyhemoglobin, which is essentially hemoglobin attached to a carbon monoxide molecule.
And so based on your observations of soot being deposited below Ms. Baker's voice box and the results of the carboxyhemoglobin test that you just described and testified to, is that significant in any way to you, in your opinion, doctor?
The level of carboxyhemoglobin was not high enough to be considered a cause of death. Typically, we expect carboxyhemoglobin to be more than 50%. People who smoke tend to have, elevated carboxyhemoglobin levels. But in the case of Ms. Baker, the presence of the soot below the vocal cords and the slightly elevated carboxyhemoglobin level would indicate that she was still alive when the fire was set.
Thank you, Dr. Falzon. So again, just to summarize everything that you've testified to thus far, were you able to form an opinion as to the cause of death of Ms. Baker?
Yes, it did.
What was that opinion?
So she died of a ligature strangulation and a stab wound of the neck. I also described the bruising on the head, the blunt force trauma of the head. As part of the internal examination, I did examine the brain, and there was some subarachnoid hemorrhage on the surface of the brain. So the other contributory factor would be blunt force trauma of the head.
Did you rule the manner of death, Ms. Baker's death, a homicide?
Yes, it did.
Overruled.
Dr. Falzon, you mentioned that part of a autopsy may include taking an X-ray or radiograph if there is evidence of a stab wound. Did I understand that correctly?
Correct.
Why do you do that?
When somebody is stabbed, the
Yes, sir.
Relevance. It's undisputed that Ms. Baker was stabbed.
All right, Mr. Bolden, do you care to respond to the objection?
Trying to allow Dr. Falzon to testify to everything that was done as part of Ms. Baker's autopsy.
I'm going to overrule the objection. You may continue.
That's for the same courtesy during our examination, Your Honor.
I'm sorry, Mr. Cruz. What do you mean by that?
We just asked for the same courtesy that the honorable state has received.
When there's an objection made, I will rule on it. Mr. Bolden, you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do you also obtain a sample of Ms. Baker's blood?
yes, I do.
What is the purpose of that?
That would be performed to collect the specimens to submit for testing for toxicology.
And is a blood spot filter card also submitted?
Yes.
And
All right. I'm going to sustain that objection, Mr. Bolden, if you'll rephrase.
okay, I will rephrase it, Your Honor. What other physical evidence is, I guess, obtained or submitted as part of an autopsy?
To establish a reference point for DNA testing, a blood spot filter card is prepared whereby we take a filter paper card and we put drops of the victim's blood that is air dried and then submitted for analysis.
Was a sexual assault kit obtained in this case?
Yes, it was.
Can you explain briefly what we mean by a sexual assault kit?
A sexual assault kit has various components to it which help in collecting evidence in cases where sexual assault is suspected. It would have swabs to collect DNA. It would have slides whereby we smear the swabs and prepare smears to look at under a microscope. It would have nail clippers to clip nails and envelopes, put those nail clippings in. And it would also have envelopes for head samples of head hair, pubic hair, and pubic hair combings.
And I apologize if you mentioned this already, but when you're talking about swabs, from where on Ms. Baker's body were those swabs obtained?
Swabs are taken from the mouth, oral swabs, from the vagina, and from the anus.
And again, I apologize if I just misheard. You mentioned smears as well. How are those smears created?
The smears are created from the swabs. So we put a Q-tip with a cotton tipped end, and that would be inserted in the cavity, the oral cavity, the vagina, the anus. Once fluid is absorbed onto the cotton tip, while it is still wet, we would take the glass slide and smear the tip of the Q-tip on that slide to prepare the smear.